I mean, it just goes, it would be...
Then tells you that there's still some interest in where, some of these people who have won that competition eventually turn out, later in life. Well, congratulations to her. We'll move away from there now and move to talking electricity matters, where the Nigerian government has stated that 3 neighboring countries, Niger, Togo, and Benin Republic, didn't pay a dime for the electricity they consumed from Nigeria for 2020. They were given a bill of 700. Electricity Regulatory Commission and Nigerian Bulk Electricity Trading Company, 770 million naira, but they didn't get to pay anything. And of course, this is blamed on the COVID-19 pandemic and the economic woes that it caused for those countries. So that's pretty interesting, as Nigerians themselves, also struggle with paying for electricity consumed. Neighboring countries also having the same, challenge.
And it calls for a lot of concern, because one would rather think that, first of all, I really do not know why if we're actually supposed to make monies from it, because at the end of the day, I mean, that's a lot of money. No sentiment whatsoever. It's business. And if you are engaged in business, majorly, a lot of persons will want to make profits. So I'm just thinking, how do we as a country, we're not even able to, produce to cater for the needs and the entire population as it is. I mean, the power situation is very epileptic. You want to talk about generation. And some people would say, yes, we are talking about privatization, but, how privatized are we, or how privatized is the private sector, I mean, the power sector, being that you still have, the government on the other side. So before we get to the fact that we're also giving neighboring countries power and not even collecting, how did we even get to that point that we're not able to cater for our own need before we're now selling or, giving power to neighboring country? It is really, really bad. I think that we should just come back and find a way to see how we're able to mop up all of that cash. That's a lot of money, and it doesn't make sense. So for me, I would rather say discontinue. What's the essence of supplying power and then you're not getting, and then we're making all of the excuses, and then we don't even have, because the power sector or the energy sector is very critical to economic development.
Well, so I think it can be described as one of the things Nigeria is exporting, electricity, because we're able to generate some level of electricity here. Yes, it's also export and generating income for the country. Then I personally don't see anything wrong with it. Whether the excuse, basically, that this is where I have a challenge. The excuse that, well, the economies of these countries have suffered so much in the last 1 or 2 years because of the pandemic, and that's the reason they've not been able to pay. That may not, really sit well, 100% with me, but I'm sure the Nigerian government knows what it's doing. I'm sure that the Nigerian Nigerian Bulk Electricity Trading Company also, understands what it's doing and will to get their funds from these countries. Business is business. Sometimes it's bad, and I'm sure this happens to everybody.
Well, I totally understand, that particular part that, business is business and sometimes it's bad. But you also want to agree with me that with indebtedness and, with the way the economy is going, we have cash, we have funds. Yeah. People are owing this country. And it's time that we begin to get all of these monies from wherever it is. So we're able, to push them into infrastructural development. Let's not even forget that the government is saying, in 2022, just in a few days to come, we will be introducing new taxes, not maybe in January, but maybe after the first quarter of 2022. And then you have new, tax regime and all of that, which is not necessary, rather than, introduce new tax regime. I'm thinking that we have, there are resources everywhere where we can just look at and then, begin to see how we can retrieve all of that. It's not very fair for everyone. I totally understand that,
Republic owing Nigeria 770 million. They, of course, had done some trials in the past and eventually have given them the license to go ahead and produce it. This is not a vaccine now. This is instead a drug, a herbal drug, that will help fight against the effects of COVID-19. Well, I believe that it's important that they continue to do whatever research is necessary, that they continue to understand exactly how the Nigerian society has been able to deal with COVID-19, and so it helps us to also produce our own medication if possible. Because I know a lot of people have used herbal medicines in the past. They're still using herbal medicines today to fight COVID-19. There's still some concoctions that they mix together, to create some, type of drug that will fight it. And these are happening in households across the country. A lot of people don't even bother, going to the hospital or bother going to, seek medical advice, to get proper medication. They have some agbo that they drink that helps.
Okay.
And I mean, if it has actually been helping, then
I'm thinking that it's not just limited to, COVID here now, because COVID is new. We're still trying to understand it. Prior to this time, that there are a lot of traditional herbal stuff that people get to take, and then it works for them. Now, cherry is the word, I'm really, I must say that this is good news for us, because we have constantly talked about the fact that, Nigeria is very dependent on the Western world. So over time, when Omicron, broke out again, of course, we started talking about Omicron, and then it got me thinking, and I started asking questions. Why is it that we just have to follow everything? Because if you look at that, it's what it is. So it's a good thing that we're, taking, going back to the drawing board, whatever it is, and we're trying to find a way. We're also trying to, solve the problem. Whether or not we get it right, it's not even the solution. I mean, it's not even the point. The point is we're making an effort, we're trying, and it's commendable, what is traditional. Because we need to find things that works for us. We need to find, what works for us as a people. Locking down.
Exactly, we're locking down because every other place is locking down. But, sadly, we don't, and in my opinion, we don't even know exactly what the figures are, to the letter, the exact figures with regards to COVID-19 in Nigeria. I don't think we're testing as much as we were testing in 2020 anymore. I don't think that we are, doing as much research as we were doing before, if we were doing any research. And so if we don't understand, once again, South Africa has worse, casualty figures with regards to COVID-19 than other African countries. But Nigeria somehow, it's either we do not know, or we've somehow just been lucky, or the government just needs to figure out what exactly is with the Nigerian system.
I'll constantly just make reference to, that statement by Tony Blair at the time, where there were concerns that, in the entire continent, the entire continent at some point had recorded about 3,000 cases of COVID-19. If I'm not mistaken. And then when you begin to make the comparison, you juxtapose that with the number of deaths in the entire continent, it wasn't commensurate. So, several arguments started coming through, like maybe we're just being very tacky with data. We're not being, there's something, they couldn't really place it. Because if you look at the number of persons who have contracted the virus and then the number of deaths recorded, there's a discrepancy, and then you can't understand why you should not have, because you're supposed to have more deaths. So at the time we're recording, just find a way to solve it and understand what it is, because it's still a novel virus as long as we're concerned, and we're still trying to understand how it operates, and we're never, it's not like we'll have a grab over it. I mean,
and why we've been able to survive it. That's my own.
Exactly, because
what exactly is it?
Wearing their nose masks and trying to observe, social distancing and what have you. So what is it about us? Is it that we're keeping to the protocols? I mean, you want to talk about vaccination, only 2% of the entire population. So we need to sit back. It's a good one. It's a brilliant one. Like I always say, I don't care what the end result is. I don't know what it is, but I just think that this is an effort and it's commendable.
I care what the end result is.
What I'm saying is, at the end of the day, the fact that you're making an effort is commendable.
Yeah.
So whether or not we get to that point that we're saying, it's going to work, or, we're going to it's going to cure, or it's going to solve any problem. But the fact that we have actually made an effort, we're trying to understand, we're trying to solve a problem, is very commendable.
I should give license to agbo sellers, if that's what it is. Major newspapers across Nigeria this morning.
No. Well done!
Have a Merry Christmas!
It is engagement we need to have.
Those who suffer miscarriages are never taken into account.
Members of the National Assembly are also influence peddlers.
You are sitting on Nigerians' money.
From the barbing, I pay my rent. On the barbing, I send my children to school.
A consultative engagement.
No any tangible notification before they ban us.
It's one thing for people to be at your back and the heat of the moment, and another thing for them to still be with you when push comes to shove.
I will do everything to take Lagos out of the national grid.
Welcome back to The Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. Time for Off the Press, where we take you through the pages of our national dailies. Checking out the big stories. We would also have an analyst join the show. Chris Nwando is on standby. Good morning, Chris. It's good to have you join us.
Good morning, my great people. Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas.
Welcome back, my brother. Nice seeing you once again.
Same here. Well, thank you for joining us.
All right, so let's take a look at the Punch newspaper this morning. And looking at the Punch, we'll start off with the banner caption, the very bold headline, and it reads, Electoral Act Amendment. Buhari returns bill to NAS and faults direct primaries, cites insecurity. That's what you find. Buhari returns bill to NAS and faults direct primaries, cites insecurity. Underneath you have riders, primary mode against party constitution. Too expensive, small parties will be marginalized. Review direct primaries clause. Send document back for assent, President tells National Assembly. That story's been dominating the conversation. Nigeria has recorded 500% infection increase in TV farmers, 5,000 displays. ACF lambastation. It's also a caption on the Punch newspaper this morning. Passport applicants patronize touts to get faster services. Aregbeshola is quoted on that as well. We'll check out one or two stories or headlines just before we move away from the Punch newspaper this morning. Lagos issues 137 billion naira bond for Lekki Road project and healthcare orders. And Ogun plans 42 billion naira revenue from land administration and rectification. Well, that's the much we can take this morning on the Punch newspaper.
All right, and now to the Nigerian Tribune. It says here, Electoral Act Amendment Bill. Buhari surrenders to APC governors, writes National Assembly. Explains why he declined assent to bill. Says exclusion of options for primaries undemocratic. OAU, VC and others attacked in Ile-Ife. Also, 45 farmers feared for peace talks in Abuja. Reps Committee grills Police Service Commission officials over 1 billion naira extra budgetary expenditure. And also, in
this day newspaper, the bold caption, quite different from what you have on the Tribune. Buhari withholds assent to Electoral Bill, says imposing direct primaries on Democratic. You have that particular quote underneath. We're unable to take that one now. Wike, National Assembly lacks willpower to override president. That's what the governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, is quoted to say. 45 feared killed in attacks on Nasarawa communities as Kaduna death toll reaches 40. Lagos raises 137.3 billion naira through bond to finance infrastructure projects. Sanwo-Olu
of Electoral Bill. President seeks amendment to direct primary clause. It says also CSOs urge lawmakers to let on strike. Across the papers this morning. Chris Nwando, welcome once again. Thanks for joining us. I'm not sure which of the stories you would like to pick up from.
Thank you very much once again for having me. Obviously, it has to be the electoral bill that the president has returned back to the National Assembly. If you ask me, I'm not surprised that is coming from the president, because from his body language, right from the time that that bill was passed by the National Assembly, he has the time to be able to assent to it, and he's been debating, seeking the opinion of AGL, seeking the opinion. He gave 4 reasons. One, that it will be very expensive. 2, that it will not favor smaller parties. 3, the issue of insecurity, and I remember the 3rd one, the 4th one now. But if you are saying insecurity, what are you saying? You are also saying in essence that, are you saying we are not going to conduct the 2023 general election that is just about 1.5 years away from now? That to me is not an excuse. What I just believe that the president has just danced to the tune of the governors. So if we are not satisfied with that, why don't you just sign the bill, and now send an amendment to the National Assembly that, okay, look at this, the part of it. That is what happens in the debate. The president has practically thrown us under the bus as far as this issue is concerned. But the question you ask yourself is that, does the National Assembly have the political will and the what it takes to be able to override? That's what I'm telling you. I said this is the 4th time that he has refused to sign the bill. And that now comes to tell most of us that there must be something more cynical about this than just the mere reasons given by the president. And I don't know why he's doing this, because if we are going to get our electoral system right, if we are going to get everything right, then that bill has to pass. Don't forget that issue of electronic voting is also contained in that bill. And that is one of the most vital point that the INEC is trying to make. And that is where INEC feel that this is how we can get it right. Some of these things have been tested in some of the elections they had, and it came out successfully. So if you're not throwing it back at the National Assembly, what do you want them to do? How will INEC plan? INEC has come out with about 300 billion naira that is saying that it needs to conduct the election. But when they are not armed with enough law to be able to prosecute the 2023 election, then I can tell you that we are in deep problem.
All right, let's move over to, some security concerns now. On this day newspaper, 45 Fiat killed in attacks as Nasarawa communities in Kaduna death toll increases and it gets to 40.
Well, we can't continue. We can't stop talking about this. Yes, 45 in Katsina, in Nasarawa. Don't also forget that 38 were also killed in Giwa, in Kaduna State, some few days back. And we've also been having, prior to that, over 25 were burned to death in their vehicles in Sokoto. I'm sure you're aware of that. You also realize that a commissioner was killed in Katsina, and another lawmaker was killed in Kaduna. Investments and the rest of the president moving all over the place, seeking foreigners to come and invest in Nigeria. How can you invest in the country without security? That in itself becomes a challenge for me. So it's so sad. And what we continue to hear is that the president will matter. This is Christmas period. A lot of people cannot travel. A lot of people cannot travel because of high level of insecurity, because you don't even know whether if you start, especially for those of us from the southeast. Yeah. I'm supposed to be in my village now, drinking palm wine with my village people and the rest of the pets. Yeah, I am in Lagos. And because what is coming out of the news coming out of those places is not something palatable. You're not even sure that if you drive from here to Benin, and from Benin to Onitsha, from Onitsha to wherever you're going to make it, let us even assume that you fly. Some people say, oh, why can't you fly? If I fly to Owerri, will the plane take me to my village? That is also the issue. So it is a big problem we're having, and I think that
you see here challenges in the southeast and in other parts of the country, kidnapping and the likes, which has become a problem. I also know that you would have loved to be somewhere in the east now with your palm wine and bushmeat, but the north. From the stories that we've read this morning, 45 dead here, 38 dead in another state, 20 or 23 were burnt in a vehicle. The North has really suffered these insecurity challenges. What do you see, or what do you think might be the after effects of this in the next 10 years or 15 or 20 years? Is Northern Nigeria just going to move on if at any point all this ends?
To a large extent, my brother, let me tell you, first and foremost, let me take it from a point that might just not sound a bit distinct. Look at it. If you look at the security architecture now, majority of the heads of security agencies are from the North. If you look at it from the point, the Chief of Army Staff is from the north, the IG of Police is from the north, the DG of DSS is from the north, and other top security heads are from the north. And you continue to ask yourself, how come that we are still having this high level of insecurity in the north if our top security agencies are also from that part of it? And that is a question that should be disturbing them. And I also ask myself, what are the governors in the states surrounding in the north also doing?
Still see some of these persons ill. Is this shocking in any way, or did you expect that this would happen like this?
Not to shock itself. It was almost to the last, some few days before the election, that even Soludo was
confirmed,
certified as the general election. That is what they called the
accusing members of the National Assembly, top officials of official position in the country.
Well, I think it's DSS that normally supposed. There is what's called security check. Not only those in the National Assembly. If you want to become a councillor, if you want to become a State House of Assembly member, you want to go a year resort. If I say I attend the Public College, which was like secondary school, it is very easy for you to just be able to send a message to the Public College or the WAEC. This result I have, is this authentic? Don't forget that issues we had, even with Governor Baseke during the election. You remember vividly, where Oshomole was an essay to the president. Over time, ICPC took it up and realized that, yes, this was the situation and he's been prosecuted. But what I'm saying in essence is that let there be due diligence, especially on the part of the security agency, that whoever is picking up an appointment, make sure that whatever he has presented as certificate is genuine. And anyone that is caught up should not only be arrested, he'll be prosecuted. And whatever money has been paid over years or sitting on that post should be refunded. And that, I think by so doing, they will be getting it right. But the way it is now, it's just a no-commerce affair.
All right. On the leadership this morning, it's a pretty interesting story there for those who have traveled across the country, even if there's security challenges. There's a little bit more good news. It says that 250 billion naira Sukuk proceeds to finance construction of 71 roads. Mr. Wandu, is this something to celebrate?
Well, for me, I think when we look at infrastructural deficit as we have in Nigeria, to me, it can be very, very appalling because seriously, on a serious note, on a yearly basis, we continue to vote billions and billions of naira for infrastructure development and rest of them, nothing to show for it, especially the roads. I apply the Lagos-Ibadan expressway on a weekly basis, And I know that there's massive construction going on there, but that has not been finished. But if you now look at other roads across Nigeria and see the level of deployable state of the roads, then you continue to ask, what have we been doing with the billions and billions of naira that we put on? Now it's Christmas period, a lot of people will be going by the roads. But you can also see that people will be prone to accidents. A lot of accidents will happen on the roads this time around. Basically, not because, as I always say, not because the fact that the road is also very bad, but also that some people are impatient when on the road. But if you have a very good road network, then it helps a lot of things. It also helps the economy because people moving their products from the villages to town and the rest of them, the prices of goods and services will not be, those goods will not be as expensive as they were. But billions and billions, my brother, this is not the first time we are hearing it. At the end of it, will not be sure. But the government said by next year they're going to do most of the federal roads. And that whatever money that they realize from doing these roads will be used to service the road. I hope that will be true. I hope it won't just go the same way so many other ones before it went, where people just pocket the money and just disappear.
Well, a lot of questions need to be asked, but, there's people who have also praised the current administration for the work that they've done on certain roads across the country. The Benin-Lagos Expressway, which is one of them that I have traveled lately, is something that, has been mentioned every now and then. There's also something on COVID-19. We also shared earlier today that the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, has given go-ahead to Afe Babalola University to produce a herbal medication, to help fight COVID-19 in Nigeria. So quickly share your thoughts on where we are today with regards to COVID-19. Last year, of course, we were in a totally different place. There was a lot of testing going on. It doesn't seem like a lot of that is happening. But of course, we're still in a pandemic. Do you think Nigeria has done well enough in managing the virus? And will herbal medication maybe be a breakthrough here in the country?
Yeah, kudos to Abua. That's a very good one. At times, when you see research news, makes me happy, because it's just like they say in the Bible. So many people were expecting Jesus to come from one of the biggest cities in Israel, but he came out from Bethlehem, where nobody knew. So because to the large extent, the first and second seems not to be potent enough to be able to handle the issue of the Omicron variant. And that is where we should be now. We should be talking about taking the booster. But how many of our people are even vaccinated with what we have? I doubt we will have close to about 5 million people, Nigerians vaccinated out of a population of over 200 million. So it's still a far cry. Then also put into context that this is the festive period. And I think that what is happening, and every Nigerian is supposed to take care of their own personal interest when it comes to their health. The government have been trying their best, but whether their best is good enough, but my own personal challenge, I basically didn't want to have taken the 2 jabs, and I probably go for the booster for my own good, not because of Nigeria.
That's if the booster is available. I mean, because we're still grappling with having enough vaccine to vaccinate the entire population, just 2% according to the reports. But I like also to chip in because, it's also a follow-up to this one. Now that we're having reports that we've recorded 500% increase of, infection, do you think that the government is, on the other hand, is saying that, we're clamping down, there's going to be...
I'm making sure that we have enough vaccines to go around and continue to encourage people to take those vaccines. And as I said, and those that have taken already to go for the booster if they so wish. But talking about the lockdown, we saw what happened during the last lockdown. You know what happened, and had a plan that it didn't work out well, and it's not going to work out well because I was even at a point that they were doing partial lockdown. Oh, some local government in Lagos State are locked down, and this one. Yeah, you see people moving from Kosovo to Lagos Island. From Island, I'm moving to Ekpe. I'm moving. How do we be able to do that? It's not possible to be able to do that. So the issue, as it were, is that let us continue to make sure that all the necessary vaccines are made available for those who want to, and let government continue to emphasize that people who have not gotten themselves vaccinated should do so. And the only way we can also checkmate that is what is happening in the federal system, where the federal government is trying to make sure that anybody that is not vaccinated within the federal civil service will not be able to access their office. Those are the little things that we can do. But are you going to force? There's no way you can be able to force or lock down. Even in countries in the world are not locking down. United Kingdom being locked down with the rise in Omicron variant. Even the United States have not locked down. So there's no way, it's not going to work, my sister. If anybody is thinking of locking down any part of Lagos or Nigeria, definitely it will work.
Okay. And also on the Punch this morning, it's a pretty interesting story, bottom left. It says there, official.
I said it, said it on to who, through which means, and for what purpose. But don't also forget that Nigerians have been left to their fate. Most people that are, when your relative get kidnapped these days and you call the police, you'll be shocked by what the police will tell you. They say, go and negotiate and pay them and make sure that your relative is released. That is from the security agencies because they don't even have the capacity to get. Policemen are being kidnapped. Are you not aware? Soldiers are being kidnapped. At all.
Okay. Would you also expect? Let's go.
That's all we always get from the president, the presidential spokesperson. Oh, the president condemned the act, and he's giving a marching order to security agencies and security to make sure that all the perpetrators of those acts are arrested and prosecuted. And then the president continued to commiserate with the families of the deceased for the loss of lives, and the president is on top of it. I'm just giving you a press statement. I'll give you a press statement already with what I'm saying, and that is what we get. But the president has to be on top of.
All right, stay with us. We'll take a short break, and we'll tell you what happened on this day many, many years ago, on the 21st of December. And this time we're going back to the year 2012. Right after that, our first major conversation for today kicks off. Stay with us.
Or business services to advertise on Plus TV here.
Great to have you back on The Breakfast here on Plus TV Africa. Our first major conversation today, of course, is going to be talking about, opening up an investigative report that was carried out by...
Morning to you, Saturday and Mercy. And since we are in the season of mercy, may God have mercy on all of us, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all our viewers all over the world in advance.
Same to you, sir. Now let's talk about the main conversation here. Cultism politics for a lot of people didn't come as a shock when that investigative report was put out. For some,
the advent of institutions to come up with a policy and a program that would eradicate cultism in our campuses within 3 months. That was as far back as 2000, and you could see that there has always been a linkage between cultism and politics. It didn't come into the open until about that time, when we saw that the president directed. We have always associated thuggery with those highlighted what has been in existence and what people have written about, what people have said about. But the challenge we have in our part of the work is that we don't value our own internal inquiry.
Mr. Johnson, why exactly is this a problem? From
influencing the democratic process. That's the challenge for me. When you have non-state actors having control over the will of the people and having access to public funds and the use of state resources to perpetrate evil in the society, that's the concern for me. For democracy to really thrive, it should be the will of the majority, not the manipulation. Virtually no street in Nigeria that you won't find one call. It has gotten to secondary school, it has gotten to primary school, it has gotten, if you link this story with the story of Dowen case, the BBC story with Dowen case, and what was the major thrust of the Dowen case, you discover that it's a menace that has eaten deep into our society. I'll tell you, there was an incident that happened, I think about 2 weeks ago, around when school student, when this secondary school student went on rampage. You need to see the venom, you need to hear what God, may God not set it in the heart to start setting things in place. So it is in virtual every nooks and cranny of our society. And it is because the political class have aided and abetted the growth of this cultism. There's no doubt about that. All you need to do is for you to just go on monitoring, doing political parties primaries, or you go through during the day of the election, and you will see how these various elements that are not state elements, security agencies, that have all arms and ammunitions that even some state security cannot boast of. Then you begin to wonder, why are these people not arrested? Or why are they not intercepted? Why are they not prosecuted by state actors if, quote unquote, they don't have political godfathers? And that's the dire strait which we have found ourselves. And there are many factors that are responsible for this.
Okay, but let's also, stay with the educational sector. Now, we know that prior to this time, cultism and cult-related activities were very common, in the universities across the country. But how did we get to the point that we now have them in our primary schools and our nursery schools and our, all these secondary schools? How did we get to that point? Do we also have, because it's been really tied down to the fact that yes, there's a connection with, politicians and, cultism and cult-related activities. But in our schools, in our institution, as fragile as this is, because we have this young, children here, how did we get to that point? How did it, get into our institution at that level?
Learning is both in character and intellect. Learning also has to do with the totality of your well-being and full development. I'll tell you this. What we are focused on is on the mental side. We have not focused on the physical side of learning. We have not focused on the moral side of learning. How many schools, you recall in the past, how many schools have sporting facilities? In education, we have co-curricular activities that goes with education. That where people can burn their unbridled energy, where people can, if someone loves violence, you could channel that resources for that person to go into combat sports like wrestling, like boxing, like kickboxing. What facility? If you check other climes, they have this student from cradle begins to know how to channel beyond education. There are co-curricular activities that we engage in. How many schools have sporting facilities? I'm throwing it to you. Both at the primary, at the secondary, and the tertiary institution, physically. Now, there's one thing which sport teaches you. For example, if you play football, you must know how to control your anger. If someone should give you a sliding tackle, you can't slap that person. If you slap that person, you'll be given a red card. That disciplines you to control your emotions. All of that, we don't have it again. And nobody's. You go to our university system, there are no sporting facilities. There are no avenue for students to even engage in sports. It's gone. It's gone. Now, why do you think that the collegiate system in America and in other part of the climate, they have sporting games for university students across the length and breadth of the, like we used to have Nuga games, like we used to have all secondary school games. So if we really want to deal with this issue, we must go back to the basics. What were the things that we are doing in the 60s? What were the things that we are doing in the 70s that we are no longer doing again? Now, the schools that we have, the sporting facilities have either been hijacked by government and turned into private estates of student organization. What do I mean by that? Student unionism. You have destroyed student unionism. You have not provided across board. And it's unfortunate that most VCs, most people in power today, even in Senate, in the House of Rep, were once student union leaders. Were once student. If you go to in how they are being governed in their school, as a result of that, they will proscribe it. I'm not taking any school out of it. Even my own school, and willingly take institutions that allow people to grow, that allow people to form their opinion, to form their ideological leaning, and for them to learn and test leadership. We don't have that again. We don't have literary and debating society in schools again. Schools used to engage in literary and debating society contests. We don't have principal corps again. All of these activities, and then we start complaining, what's happening? No, we are the cause of the problem, because some of the things that we need to engage the youth, they have unbridled energy. We don't use to engage them. Some of the things that we need to use to teach them leadership, to teach them responsibility, to get them engaged, to form their.
But today it almost
my younger
doesn't
sister,
exist.
My younger sister won 2 gold medals for Unilag. 2 gold medals in basketball and in handball for Unilag in Nuga games. So we don't have, Even in secondary school, you don't have all of that again. You send the children.
There used to be inter-house
sports.
sports in the
inter-house sports that you invite other schools, and they don't even have those sporting facilities again. What are, for example, Osarugi and Messi? You know, once a child goes to school, primary, secondary, and he goes to college, if he cannot get admission through his mental ability, he could get admission through his physical ability. By the natural talent he has, probably in one sporting activity or the other. We recruit leadership in society through those means. You know, the only way we tell people to success in Nigeria is for you to be mentally sound. And that's not how society grows. And that's not how we develop this society in the past. I remember one song Ebenezer Obey sang in the 70s, that you do not bury your talent. If your talent is to sing, let the child sing. If the talent of your child is to play football, let him play football. He might turn to have not let it catch tomorrow. There are various means which people could succeed. Just imagine if there was no boxing in America. You will hear of someone like Mayweather. Will you hear of someone like Mike Tyson? Will you hear of someone like Tyson Fury in Great Britain? Or there's no basketball, and look at the schools, and look at whether there are sporting facilities in those schools. Even private schools, we are sending our children to prison. That's what we are sending them to. They come in the morning, we give them, they will do mental work, we give them assignment. Have you attempted to do the assignment with a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, of non-school school children? Have you attempted to do the assignment? Just look for one of your cousins and let them bring the assignment for you. The assignment will take hours. So emphasis is on intellectual development, it's not on mental development, it's not on physical development, it's not on moral development. And we've been 7. I was actively involved. I've sought elected office. I've held party offices. So I know what is.
You know, across, of course, each and every state. And so is this, really just the politicians taking advantage of the availability of thugs and unemployed, individuals in society to, help keep themselves in power? Or is this, targeted directly at cultism itself?
No, you see, it's power. Power is sweet. And the spoils of power is very, very sweet. Do you know that some members of state cabinet are members of cultists?
Yes.
Cultist group. Some members of in actual sense, there was a particular government in one of the southwestern states. For you to be a member, you must join you must be a member of a particular cultist groups. For you to be a member of that. That's how bad it has gotten into, that people don't even hide it. And as a result of that, they promote all of this in the society, and they promote this in schools. Now, if you look at what was the reason behind the establishment of cultists, confraternities, this type of groups, it is not to foment trouble. It is not to foment violence. It is not to engage in assassinating rival groups. This was meant to be to provide protection, a sense of responsibility and identification for people in the university systems. Once you go to school abroad, all these confraternities are open. They are well known. And then you decide which one you want to join based on the values, based on the philosophy, based on the ideas which they stand for. If you check the basis, the idea behind some of these cultist group when they were established and what they are doing now, you see that there's a departure. Well, let's talk about pride in the society now. So these are the challenges that we have. It's because you have made them secret. That's why they have become nefarious in their activity, and they can be used for clandestine activities. Let them. If you go to school abroad, you have different types of groups, different types of confraternity you can join. And then, for example, you know that the first 6 by some certain ideas, you must be ready to contribute to the growth of the society, not to destroy others, not to kill others. And that's what we have in our own part of the world, that people will now use it to perpetuate themselves in power, because they know if they allow the will of the people, if they allow people to freely and peacefully go to the poll, they will not win the election. So how do they do that? In order to perpetuate the tyrannical rule of the minority. So they will, at least I should be, we see the way they do elections in other climes. Election is like carnival. And we used to have election like that in Nigeria. It used to be like carnival. How did we get to where we are now, if not that the political class has a hand in it? And like BBC has reported, and like Nigerian media have reported, have you seen any? And how violence was perpetuated in that state? The only person that was jailed, I knew he was